Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Welcome back. I'm Lisa C. What is the difference between you and someone with a criminal conviction? They happen to get caught. Today, my guest is Miranda McCroskey, a defense attorney with over 20 years of experience who understands how a mistake can turn a licensed professional into what she calls an accidental criminal. Professional licensees make mistakes too. Miranda McCroskey represents California licensed professionals such as doctors, nurses, and real estate agents in front of their boards, handling the collateral consequences of one bad choice. These professionals were not receiving representation by typical criminal law firms, and Unlock Legal stepped in and filled the gap. So if you hold a professional license, I believe you'll find today's show important and enlightening. And if you are a licensed professional who had to give up your professional license due to a criminal conviction or related issue, today's show might just be the message you need. Unlock Legal was built to petition your board to get your license reinstated. Please welcome lead attorney and CEO of Unlock Legal, Miranda McCroskey. Welcome to the show, Miranda.
Well, hi, Lisa. As always, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, this is a good one. This is, you really help licensed professionals get their life back, I would say.
Yeah, that's what we say, too. We say we unlock their life and their license.
Nice. So let's first talk about the pressures individuals with professional licenses are under on a regular basis. Obviously they work long hours and so on and so forth. Can you speak to some of the pressures that they're under that could potentially cause challenges?
Well, in any particular group of people, I actually do this quite often in a networking environment. I'll ask people to raise their hand if they have a professional license, and it's surprising how many people in the room do. And when I ask them who they are and what they do, it is way more than doctors, nurses, and real estate professionals. I mean, there's a contractor potentially in the room, a landscape architect, an esthetician, a cosmetologist, firefighters, pest control, and CPAs, teachers. So many licensed professionals here in California, and the pressures they have are the same as all of us, and potentially more so. They get used to having a larger income, and so their life is more expensive, and they're also dealing with their own clients and their own clients' griefs and woes. And so, I would say the level of pressure is particularly high. I've heard, and I may be misquoting, it's something I read along the way, but the dentists have the highest suicide rate, followed by attorneys. So I think that's proof that licensed professionals have some stresses and challenges to deal with.
Wow. Yeah. So you recognize that not enough attention was given to these individuals, and you call them, I love it, accidental criminals. Can you kind of speak to that phrase?
Yeah. I've been practicing criminal defense exclusively for over 20 years before I brought in the administrative law, which is another name for professional license defense part to it. And what I felt like is the clients that came to me and hired me for the criminal aspect, I called them accidental criminals. It would be the first-time DUI. It'd be the elderly woman who was having Chardonnay while she had lunch and read her book and then popped for a DUI on her way home. Totally unanticipated. Or maybe the carpool mom who dinged the car in front of her during drop-off and she was frazzled and she left and turned out that was a hit and run. So definitely accidental criminals as opposed to career criminals, say. So what I saw is that a lot of my clients for the criminal capacity had professional licenses, and they wondered what the next step would be. I'd represented them to protect their liberty interests, keep them out of jail, keep the fines lower and things like that. But now I needed to represent them to protect their livelihood.
Yes, definitely. And I would assume that an accidental criminal, there's quite a bit of shame that comes along with a situation occurring, because this is not typically a situation that they would find themselves in.
Yes, there is absolutely some shame involved, and although not merited, but yes, they seem to have that experience. And the other thing is, I'm very naive about dealing with attorneys, which is not I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I just mean, as I deal with them, I realize that we need to take it step by step and explain it along the way, because perhaps they've just never had to hire an attorney to represent them for a legal matter.
Sure. Wow. Yeah. So what's the first thing an individual with a professional license should do if they find themselves in a situation that they've either been arrested or some situation that could potentially be hazardous to their license?
Well, we like to encourage people to call us very early on. Some clients hire me for the criminal matter, and I get to help them in front of their licensing board. But probably an even larger percentage have already hired a criminal defense attorney before they meet me, and that attorney refers them to me. And that should happen very early in the process, because we can help advise the criminal defense attorney on the best potentially plea deal to take. Some charges are more beneficial for them to plead to than others. So let's say there's a DUI on the table. It would probably be more beneficial for them to plead to a reckless driving charge than driving under the influence. So we can counsel the client on that. We can also provide, we call it an opinion letter. It's a letter we provide for the defense attorney to use in mitigation for the case. They can give that to the prosecuting district attorney and hopefully help the conviction be the best. It's never going to be good, but the best possible for the client.
Sure. And so it sounds like with your years of experience as a defense attorney, it's a collaborative approach if they have already hired a defense attorney for that side of the situation.
Yeah, I don't step on anyone's toes, but I will advise them on the consequences of their plea, because defense attorneys are fabulous at what they do, but maybe they're not well versed in administrative law, which is what I do. So it works well.
Got you. So what would you, if you even can, say, what are 3 to 5 common accidental criminal charges that you've seen occur over and over the years?
Well, easy answer is DUI. I think in California, DUI is the most prevalent arrest. I may be wrong on that, but it's something I heard. And numbers weigh that out. So what will happen, and this is very interesting, what will happen is an individual will educate themselves. Let's say Sally gets her nursing degree gets her Bachelor's of Science in Nursing at USC, and then she applies to the Board of Registered Nursing, and they deny her application because of an old DUI that she failed to disclose properly. So there's the bugaboo of the DUI, even an old one causing a problem. Or let's say Sally gets that license, and now she's a practicing nurse and she gets a fresh DUI. Well, she has to tell her board about that within 30 days. Let's say she fails to tell them timely because she doesn't know about that requirement, which is common, and they find out for a myriad of ways. And now they file an accusation against her with 2 counts. One is it's a problem that she got a criminal conviction, namely DUI. Actually, 3 counts. We've got alcohol-related, we've got the criminal conviction, and we've got the failure to disclose because she didn't know. And then lastly, maybe they gave up their license. I've had, because of a DUI, I had a client get 2 DUIs in rapid succession, and she just had to manage so much, and the court matter was so strenuous, and she just gave up her license because she just didn't have the wherewithal to fight. We were able to get her license back, which is a great victory, but there's one example. You said multiple, but I'd say DUI is number one. I've also had, I had a teacher with a domestic violence charge. It was very important. This is back when I was doing the criminal part, but it was very important that we get that dismissed so that she wouldn't lose her teaching credential. I've had a chiropractor with a theft charge. I mean, it goes on and on. It's any variety of combinations.
Got you. Wow. And how many professionals have you helped regain their license or overcome an obstacle with regard to their license?
Well, that's a tricky question. We aim to serve at least 100 clients a year and do well at that, but they're not all professional licenses. Sometimes we help people with traffic matters. Sometimes we help the criminal matters, sometimes the one-off. But I'd say it's a substantial number for sure.
Yeah, sounds like it. Wow. Is there one person that you helped that just kind of sticks in your mind that was a real win for you?
Oh, yes. And they're my favorites, these wins. I have two where I kind of referenced this, where the individual gave up their license for a variety of reasons. I had a nurse. She had her own gastric bypass surgery, and so she was at home recuperating, and she was taking pain meds, and they got the better of her, and she got addicted. And so when she went back to her career at the hospital, her job, she did what they say, they call it diverting the medicine. It means it was supposed to go to the patient, but it went in her pocket instead. And she ended up losing her license out of that. She just didn't have the wherewithal to fight for it. She was battling her own addiction and everything else. But about 5 years after that, she heard about me and came and retained me, and we took all sorts of steps to create mitigating and rehabilitative evidence, and we went and we did a live hearing in front of an administrative law judge and presented all the evidence, and she'd done such a wonderful job, and we were able to prove ongoing sobriety, which is pretty tricky to prove a negative. It's hard to prove you're not drunk, but we did a great job, and she did get her license back. So she gets to spend the rest of her career. She was maybe 50 at the time. She gets to spend the rest of her career doing her chosen profession because we fought for it and won. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, that's excellent. What motivates you? What drives you to help these individuals, Miranda?
Well, I'm a professional, and while I haven't been in the same circumstance, I fought long and hard for my license like they did as well. I mean, as far as educating myself and taking the state bar and all that. So I have an empathy. They're my people, right? I have an empathy for them. People with criminal convictions are also my people. I spent most of my career in service to them. So there really is a certain subsection of people, professionals with the criminal matters. That drives me. And besides that, these victories are wonderful. To have them be able to go back to their chosen career so they can serve more people and that I had a hand in that is very inspiring.
That's excellent. I love it. So do you have any recommendations, precautions that licensed professionals can take to protect their license and livelihood? Yeah,
I would say starting chronologically. So the first thing you do when you want to get a professional license is apply. So if you have any questions about your application, if you don't know if that old criminal matter is the count, maybe you already had it expunged. Do you have to disclose it? Yes. Or maybe it was a drug matter and it got dismissed because you did a TC-1000, which is a certain series of drug classes you can take, and they'll dismiss your class. Do you have to disclose that? Yes. If you have any questions about those old cases, that's something we will counsel our clients about, and we'll even do the application and properly disclose any old criminal matters so that the application is more likely to be accepted and not rejected. Second, if your application is denied and you do get the documentation in the mail, you're going to be really disappointed, but you also are facing a timeline by which you have to respond or they will default and you won't get your license. So we represent people in those denials of their applications a lot. Next is if you're a licensed professional in action and you get an accusation filed against you, you have 15 days to file a notice of defense to tell the board you're fighting it. You need to be timely about that. If you have a fresh a case open, kind of just like I said earlier, you want to bring us in right at the start. Even though you have a savvy criminal defense attorney, that's wonderful, but we add a second cut at it. And then lastly, as has been mentioned a few times in this podcast, if you want your license back and you never thought it was possible, it might be possible. We can definitely talk about that and look at what it would take to be able to petition to have it back.
Excellent. So what are some of the common misconceptions people have that may not be true that licensed professionals are, I'm sure they're kind of like what you...
Sorry, I interrupted you. Ask me.
No, go right ahead.
Sometimes when I'm chatting with a criminal defense attorney and I tell them what I do, they say to me, "Oh, nothing ever happens to them," meaning their clients. The defense attorney says nothing happens to my clients, and I'm thinking, well, I'm making my living off of those clients, so something's happening. So that's a misconception that that DUI you get isn't going to make a difference. The next conception is kind of the other side of the coin on the same thing. People say, "Oh my God, you mean I'm going to lose my license if I get a DUI?" No, not necessarily, but they're going to try to discipline your license, and you might want to hire someone who knows what they're doing to defend you. So those are two misconceptions. Another one that catches people is they have obligations to report arrests and felonies and convictions, and they're different for every board. I'm always having to research anew to know who needs to get what when. But licensed professionals should keep in mind that their board is going to have some requirements for disclosure of a arrest or a conviction, and they need to call a savvy attorney or find a way to figure it out for themselves.
Right, yeah. Excellent. And I'm sure many licensed professionals who are in good standing, kind of as you said, that the defense attorney says, don't think what we're discussing today applies to them. Why should they take note of our conversation today?
Because it'll probably apply to them. I want to make sure I understood. You mentioned that you were referencing what I said, that a criminal defense attorney might not think it applies to their client. Is that accurate?
No, I'm actually talking. Yeah, I referenced that, but I'm really talking about the dentist, the chiropractor that just thinks nothing's going to happen to me kind of position.
Well, every licensing board or agency in California, their main purpose is to protect the public. That's their stated mission, so to speak. And that's inaccurate, but it's not really their mission, but that's their purpose, to protect the public. So inside of that, when there's a criminal matter that a licensee commits or allegedly commits, the board is going to take notice because they're going to deem you a danger to the public. And even though you say, I was at a barbecue on a Saturday, how is that relevant? They're going to find a way to make it relevant. They always look for a nexus and say it's substantially related to your practice. Maybe they will hang it on the fact that your judgment was off. You got in a car while you were inebriated. How do we know you're not going to show that same poor judgment in your workplace? Something like that. So it's always worth a conversation to see if it's relevant to you instead of just assuming, with hubris that it isn't.
Absolutely, and at the very least, listen to this interview. So, in closing, what advice can you leave our listeners with if they should find themselves in jeopardy of losing their license because of a criminal conviction?
Well, they should call a qualified and experienced administrative law attorney, or also call the professional licensed defense attorney. It's just important to get someone who specializes in this. The issues, the more experience we have with the more indifferent clients we deal with, the more and better advice we can give. And so that would be the advice I have.
Excellent. Well, thank you for sharing your knowledge. We always like having educators and advocates on, having chats with professionals and experts like yourself who are willing to lead with value.
Yes, please give my office a call. This is Miranda McCroskey. My firm is Unlock Legal. Our phone number is 833-UNLOCKED, 833-UNLOCKED, which is 833-865-6253. We'll We're located in Tustin, California, but we're able to serve all Californians across the state.
Well, thank you again for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.